Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. Now that my two obligatory informative videos are done for the day, you guys know what time it is. It's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community. And today, we're going to talk about Ian McCarthy, who I thought was completely out of the game, but apparently, some people linked me his Instagram. Apparently, he's talking about starting another YouTube channel back up to bring all of his evidence-based scientific training protocols, which don't work for crap, back to the community, so you guys can all stop making gains. So let me put on my +5 hat of weaponsmithing, work on skilling up my crafting a little bit, and let's talk about this. Now, I've got a co-host here. A lot of you guys recognize this from Junkie Ward's videos. It's the Cocoa Puff off the side of his head. Now, it did try to attach itself to me at first also. A lot of you guys are like, that's dangerous, isn't it? No, it's all good. I called Nether Beast up and had him perform a shamanistic prayer to prevent it from forming a symbiosis with me. So we're good to go now. We're safe. Let me put this fella up here, set him right here in my lap. Nova's going to get jealous. Okay, you need to be careful. Nova might come after you, Mr. Cocoa Puff. But let me flip in a video of Ian No Gains McCarthy deadlifting. Alright guys, there we had Ian doing 165 pounds for 6 reps, and he was saying it was an intense set. He talked about the mind-muscle connection on his Instagram. It was all about the mind-muscle connection. You know what? This is why I laugh so hard at these guys who use this term evidence-based. That they're evidence-based. Evidence-based. They're usually tiny and weak. You guys notice that? And it's not because there's anything wrong with science. Is that there's a lot of problems in exercise science as it comes to training these days. A lot of problems. I mean, a perfect example, you've got Ian. He's been doing this longer than I've been on YouTube. I mean, Ian has basically been training for a decade. Had his little dabble with gear. And at no point ever in his training did he ever finish out his noob gains, right? He still has noob gains left in the tank. He has never developed a strength base. And he constantly says things like, well, I know that certain styles of training work better than body part splits, but I know the evidence is there, but I just find these more comfortable. And he does anything that he can to avoid actually doing real work in the gym. He just avoids tension. He's afraid of tension, even though we know, based upon all the research, that tension is an enormous factor. Probably the largest factor in strength gains. And it's still an enormous factor in hypertrophy and everything else. He's afraid of actual muscle tension. He's afraid of it, which means weight on the bar, guys. And I don't mean weight on the bar just so you can cheat it up, but the weight on the bar for good form through a full range of motion creates the highest tension possible on a muscle, particularly at the weakest points for that muscle. He is afraid of tension. And he, like all these other evidence-based guys, get into this floofy-woofy stuff. Like, well, see, it's not about how much weight's on the bar. It's about, can we create certain metabolites? Basically, they do anything that they can. Anything they can to avoid doing hard work. And it's always, you got to form a mind-muscle connection, man. Like, they sound like a bunch of New Age hippies. And they talk about science. It sounds more like Scientology than science most of the time. And they pull nonsense. And it's that bad. These are the same guys who come up with this blood flow restriction training. Yet, when you look at the science, it's not even that good. Meaning, I've read every study anyone's ever produced on blood flow restriction. I have never seen anything in there that would suggest to me that it's worth doing. Well, I look at the data. But guys like Ian Followitz, well, the evidence shows. The evidence shows that it doesn't do anything. In other words, they do studies to where they say, oh, we compared it to traditional hypertrophy training. We compared it to traditional hypertrophy training and it produced the same amount of metabolites. So they're trying to claim that, hopefully it will produce just as much muscle growth as traditional training methods. That's not superior. That's not good evidence. That means you have to go buy a tourniquet. You have to spend extra time putting a tourniquet on. You got to sit in the gym looking like a jackass. And possible risk from putting a tourniquet on yourself. So that you can hopefully get the same gains. I've never seen anything showing that it was particularly effective. In fact, I've never seen a study yet where it produced equal muscle gains to superior forms of training. Now, people say, what do you mean? There were some that said that. No, they said they were statistically insignificant differences. The perfect example, like they had people doing high tension training, basically heavy resistance training with a bench press, right? And they broke them into several groups. And the group that added blood flow restriction for their triceps saw strength gains, if they did the heavy work also, strength gains and muscle gains that were very similar, statistically insignificant in their difference due to probably the size of the pool studied, but they were still less. It's just it was a statistically insignificant difference less. But the people did get less goals by adding the crap in versus the people who just did the heavy work by itself without it. And the people who did just the blood flow restriction, guess what? They gained less muscle and strength in both groups than the people who combined it and the people who did the actual heavier work. All right, this stuff doesn't work. It's nonsense. This is the sort of stuff that Ian gets into. Same thing, this mind-muscle connection. Mind-muscle connection. Oh, because the evidence suggests that it's good. Did you guys look at the evidence for this? Yeah, they've done mind-muscle connection studies on the bench press where they took groups and they had people just try to use good form without focusing on anything specific, neither internal nor external cues, right? Internal cues being mind-muscle connection. You focus on a given muscle. External cues meaning you focus on doing something outside, right? They had groups who did no cues, and then they had a group who focused on squeezing their pecs as hard as they could. Then they had them focus on squeezing their triceps as hard as they could. Then they had them focus on compensatory acceleration, which means explode with the weight as quickly and as hard as you can while maintaining good form. You know what they found? EMGs showed that the bench press group that didn't use any internal or external cues, what happened? Well, they saw the lowest activation in the triceps and chest, right? The group that when they focused really hard on their chest, they saw more muscle fiber recruitment in their chest than the other group. But the triceps didn't have any improvement. When they focused on their triceps, the triceps activated harder on the EMG study when they focused on squeezing and contracting the triceps, the mind-muscle connection, but the chest didn't get any better than the other group. Then the group that used explosiveness and lifted the weight as quickly as possible, which is what I tell you guys to do, explode with the weight with good form, because this is what we've known for years. It produces the most muscle fiber recruitment. What did it show? It beat the mind-muscle connection group in both muscles at the same time. In other words, it activated the chest on the EMG more than focusing on the chest did in that one, and it recruited the triceps more effectively than the group that focused on squeezing the triceps. The explosiveness made everything work better. Yet these evidence-based jackasses will say, oh, see, this proves the mind-muscle connection works. No, it proves that the mind-muscle connection is garbage. It's absolute garbage compared to actually lifting explosively. It's inferior. Because you get better chest results than by squeezing your chest by lifting it explosively, and better tricep results than by squeezing them explosively. And then you can skip the mind-muscle connection for both muscles and just bench explosively, and you'll get the best of both worlds. Everything will grow faster. Get better muscle fiber recruitment. See, that's evidence-based. But these guys don't want to do that because, oh man, we got to push harder. We got to actually work. No, we want to be big pussies. See, we want to not put forward effort and find some mystical, magical approach that will give us the same results. See, that's our goal. No, we don't want results that show, man, lifting more weight. or pushing harder, recruit more muscle fibers. No, we're not interested in that. We were hoping for a shortcut around that. We were hoping that the nether beasts, fairies, and reptilians would come and help us magically recruit more muscle fibers with fairy dust and pixie unicorns. It's like that's what they're into. Yeah, we just wrap the unicorn band around our arm and focus on the mind-muscle connection, and we'll get cock diesel. Yeah, screw this hard work. And hey, that's exactly why Ian is tiny and weak. He is weaker than most people should be after a year of training on a proper program. I mean, 165 for 6 on a deadlift, plus he doesn't know how to deadlift very well. And the fact that when he pulled the slack out of the bar with 165, any grown man, and I saw this in my own comments, people talking about this, and they're right, because I've said the same thing. You know that you're decently strong when you can't warm up with 135 or something like that on the deadlift. Do you know why? I can't do that. I can't not pick it up by accident. Like when I bend down to grab the bar, I accidentally pick the bar up off the ground before I'm set into position. I can't pull slack out of the bar. I can't set anything correctly to lift on a deadlift with that weight because the bar, I accidentally pick it up off the floor. And I'm not the strongest guy up here on YouTube on the deadlift. It actually happens to me even with 225 sometimes. So yeah, you got a guy who he pulls the slack out of the bar on the first rep and doesn't pick 165 up accidentally. That's a weak dude. That's a guy who doesn't have a decade of training experience under his belt. And again, these are the people who want to tell you that they have the evidence-based answers. They can't even build muscle or get strong. He never finished out his noob gains. Now he's going to come back to YouTube and teach you guys how to focus on the mind-muscle connection with lightweight, sub 200-pound deadlifts with unicorn bands wrapped around your hamstrings to cut off the blood flow. Yeah, that's exactly what he's going to talk about. He's going to talk about how one arm cable lat pull downs will give you the most back development possible because it'll align the handles with the fibers in your latissimus dorsi the most. Yet he has no back and no back strength. Because yeah, weighted chin-ups are hard. He doesn't want to do that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I and Junkie Ward's Cocoa Puff will talk to you guys next time.